Hey everybody, this is Paul from Forge the Narrative. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe, especially if you like these daily rundowns about what the Warhammer community team is releasing about the upcoming 8th edition 40k rule set. And today we got a huge bomb dropped on us because of the characters. The way characters interact is completely changed. No longer can characters hide within units. They can't even join units. Now they have to exist on their own outside of almost as their own, hopefully what I consider some super units. Even though Death Stars, they're saying, have been changed and eradicated. I've got something to say that may be a little controversial on that, and I'll save that for just in a minute. Anyway, as you know, characters used to be able to join units, pass along a bunch of buffs and rules and their leadership and what have you to any unit that they join. Now this is changing to where it's going to be keyword based, and the characters they describe in this article are a special character for the Dark Eldar that gives buffs to incubi, specifically to incubi, but then a lowly Kroot Shaper, a generic character that buffs things with a Kroot keyword within a certain radius, and I think that's going to give some really interesting things for them to play with and give us rules for even things that aren't super special characters. But we don't have any specifics on that, but we'll see. So can't join units is big. This means that the protection that a character used to get from joining a unit is now gone. But they go on to say later in the article that characters with 10 wounds or less will not be able to be targeted if there is a unit closer to the firer. This is pretty big, and I'll read it exactly. This represents the difficulty in picking out individuals amidst the maelstrom of battle and applies to all characters with a wounds characteristic of 10 or less, including things that previously might not have been benefited from protection, for example, Guilliman. So things with 10 wounds or less, there are going to be other things that are like that, not just the Primarch or more Primarchs, right? But you're not going to be able to target them with shooting if they aren't the closest unit. So where I'm going to say that's controversial is, wasn't that the point of Death Star units anyway? I know that that getting the rules applied to a unit was a big bonus. But one of the biggest things that you did with that was protecting those characters so you could deliver them to the enemy in order so they could reach contact with the enemy at full capacity and do as much damage as they possibly could. Because these were mostly melee-based units, and so we're now able to automatically protect. This is not a Lookout Sir. Remember Lookout Sir? On a 1, you failed the Lookout Sir, and you had to take the save on the character because they were normally out front because you wanted them to get there and reach the enemy. This is an automatic. You can't even shoot. You've got to kill every single other enemy that's closer to you than they are. And then when you team this up with the extra movement and range and that phantom inch that we talked about on this week's podcast, characters are going to be able to reach combat way more efficiently and way more reliably than they ever used to. So I think this is this is kind of a change that affects the perception more than anything, which is good because no one wants to roll dice for 30, 45 minutes and then not see anybody pick up any models. And that's what we saw in the Death Star and in 7th edition with other really defensible units and almost invulnerable units. And we're not going to see that. We're going to see models being removed. We're going to see whole units being removed. We're going to see characters being able to take big swaths of damage and still be able to reach combat and do what you wanted them to do to get used to the toy. So I think this is more of a perception change on Death Stars than anything else. That doesn't mean that it's not a good change. I think, as I just mentioned, that you're going to see things being removed, things being interacted. You're going to see characters be able to have an impact on the whole table, your army, and not just one unit. You're not going to have to build a singularly specific, peculiar unit. You're going to be able to, I believe, take theme choices that are going to buff out your entire army, which in itself is cool. I mean, that's really what I think what we want to see. And you're going to see stuff like my original Cabal. I shouldn't say Cabal. Librarius Conclave was Mephiston and 2 Librarian Dreadnoughts. Now Think how neat that's going to be. The dreadnoughts are going to be able to still be able to run and almost act as a screen for probably characters like Mephiston. I don't know. We haven't seen his stats, but I'm really looking forward to it, to get the idea of being able to do some of that stuff and not feel hamstrung by the way the rules work. Like I had to build a unit that would protect my characters to be able to get them into combat, so they did anything. I'm not even promising that they would have won, just so they did anything. And now we're going to get an opportunity to play with that in a whole different way. Characters are going to mean something to your army. You're going to have units that people can interact with, and I think that's the big takeaway. Armies will be able to interact with other armies. I'm not saying there's not going to be things that are difficult to wound and kill, but with the way Battle Shock works, with the way that things have tons of wounds, and things do tons of damage, you're going to see this variance that I think is going to have a lot of back and forth, interesting gameplay. So to sum up, characters can no longer join units. You can't target characters with 10 wounds or less unless they're the closest thing to you. I think this is going to allow for even more interaction between armies, which means you're going to have, by round 3, round 4, you're going to see things change on the table. It's not going to be two just big units just staring at each other, or a firing line getting as far away as it possibly can, and this mass of a singular giant unit with a footprint just creeping forward. I think it's going to be good. Hold tight.